Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Simone here. So today I'm going to be doing my May wrap up and I'm going to tell you all the books that I read in May. And this month I've read 8 books so far, but I am filming this a little bit early. So I am in the middle of a book at the minute that I probably am going to finish before the end of the month. So I will mention it at the end. So the first book that I read this month was Deadly Embrace by Jackie Collins. Jackie Collins is actually one of my favourite authors. I know I've mentioned before that when I was younger, one of the first books I remember reading was a book that I took off my mum's shelf, and it was called Lovers and Players, I believe. And I remember it was a bright purple jacket on the book. And I remember that I literally hid it under my covers every time like somebody came into my room or sort of walked upstairs, because I was scared I was going to get in trouble. Because basically Jackie Collins writes books about sex, about drugs, about nightclubs, about Hollywood life basically. And I think she's amazing. She's unfortunately passed away now, but I love this book. It was great. I gave this a 4 stars. Basically this follows a woman named Madison Castelli, who is basically a journalist who has just found out that her dad is not who he says he was, and she then decides to travel to LA from New York, where she sees her best friend, and they get caught up in a kidnapping in a restaurant. They're like hostages, and it's so good. This book is like, I will say these books are not like the most life-changing, they're not the most like amazingly written, but they're so like, they keep you on your toes, you never quite expect what's coming, they're funny. There's always so many different characters in her books, and I love pretty much all of them. There's always like those horrible characters that you kind of are supposed to hate, and I think that's great as well. And I always end up feeling sorry for somebody who's like a gang member or something, which I always find really strange, because in like films I hate watching stuff like that, but I love reading about it. The next book I read this month was a library book, and it is Happy Days, the official illustrated autobiography of Ollie Murs. I love Ollie Murs. I think he's an amazing singer. I think he's a really funny guy. I actually went to see him in the O2 about 6 or 7 years ago. At the time when I went, I'd actually never really listened to any of his music. My friend had actually been let down by her friend who was going with her, and she said to me, "Do you want to come along? I've got an extra ticket, and otherwise it's going to go to waste." And I was like, "Yeah, of course I will." And I went along, and I was really close to him as well, which was great. Like, he was really close to us, and I think his music's great. I really like learnt to love him that day, and he was a really good performer as well, which is fantastic. This book I really enjoyed. Although it says it's about 250 pages, I think the last like 150 pages is just like pictures. So actually it was only about 100 pages, the actual like writing. But I learnt a lot about him I didn't already know. Like, I feel like he's one of those people that I don't really know a lot about his personal life. I think he's often quite a private person about things like that. So it was interesting to read about things that he'd done in his childhood, and to see some of the like bits that have heard in the media, like the things that have actually been kind of discussed, and sort of see his side of it, which has been really interesting. My favourite part was honestly reading about the X Factor and kind of how he felt and what happened and stuff like that. I love that thing. And yeah, this was a great book. I gave this a 3 star. It's an autobiography, so I always really struggle giving non-fiction books a rating. But yeah, I go with 3 stars. I liked it. It didn't blow me away, but then again, it's an autobiography and it's a real life story, so yeah. The next book I read this month was to carry on from reading The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe last month, and I read The Voyage of the Dawn Treader by C.S. Lewis, which is part of the Chronicles of Narnia series. Now, I know before any of you say anything, this is not the next one in the book series, but I'm not really reading them in any order. I've read them all before when I was a kid, and I'm kind of just reading them in the order that I liked them, I suppose. So I read this one. I love this. I gave this a 3 star. This for me, the book is not as good as the BBC adaptation that I saw when I was younger, only because I think that I've watched that so many times and I love it so much that this would be really difficult to sort of match up. Although it was really interesting because I feel like so much happens in this book and it's only about 300 pages. 270. So there's a lot that happens in it. Basically this follows the two youngest Pevensey children from The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, Lucy and Edmund, and they go to stay with their cousin Eustace, and basically they all get sucked into this painting which takes them into the sea, and then they wash up on the kind of the Dawn Treader itself, which is obviously where they're going, and basically they are going to find the 7 lords of Narnia who have gone missing, basically, and they kind of all went on this voyage somewhere but nobody knows where they are, and they have to go find them. And there's so many things that happen, but I have noticed because of this how like close to the original that the BBC one has was the adaptation, because pretty much everything in the book was in the TV show, and I really enjoyed it. It's definitely something that kind of took me back to my childhood, and I think everybody should read the Chronicles of Narnia because it's really just that like nostalgic feeling about it. Like there's something about it that's just really sort of enjoyable, and it didn't take me long to read either, which is great. Then I read another book from my childhood. It seems to be my month of doing that actually, which you'll notice in a minute when you see some more. But I then read Are You There God It's Me Margaret by Judy Blume, which was one of my favourite books as a child. This follows a 10-year-old girl called Margaret who is living her life, and she is sort of starting to go into puberty, and so she is starting to want to wear a bra, and she's starting to need deodorant and all the fun stuff that I'm sure we all remember happening when we were kids. And I loved this book. This is such a great like nostalgic read for me. I loved this when I was younger. I love pretty much every Judy Blume book actually, so I'm definitely hoping to read some more of them soon because I think it was fantastic. I did give this a 3-star, not because I didn't like it, just because it is a very kind of young written book, like it's for a younger audience, so I didn't obviously get as much from it as I did when I was younger, but I definitely still appreciate those things and I definitely loved it. So yeah, again, it's another book that I would recommend pretty much any girl who's going through puberty to read, because I feel like this will just explain it to you and make you feel like you're not alone. Next book that I read was Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows by J.K. Rowling. This completed my reread that I started in about September of last year. The only book I had left to read was the final book, and I did it this month. I adore this book. I actually, this is the one I've read the least, just because for me, I reread all the other books as new ones came out. So obviously because this was the last one, I didn't read it as much. And I think before this, I've only ever read this twice. But it's probably my favourite, I think. This is the kind of final summing up of the whole series. I love it. I think that it's really well written. We learn a lot about different characters in this that we wouldn't necessarily have known. I am on the side, the whole Snape thing, I'm kind of on the thing of I still think he's a horrible person. I get that he loved Harry's mum. I don't think that means he had the right to be so horrible to him during, but I also can appreciate how Harry must have felt, although I don't think that it was enough for him to name his child after him. I mean, that's a separate thing, but yeah, anyway. I will say that I don't like the ending, the last, I think the last bit, 19 years later or whatever it is at the end. I didn't like that. I didn't like the Harry Potter and the Cursed Child either though, so it's not really unexpected, I suppose. But anyway, let's not talk about that. This one's great. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Obviously, I gave all the Harry Potters a 5 out of 5 stars. I think if I could give this more I would, because this is definitely my favourite. And yes, I've read them all again, so now I'm going to have to read them again at some point, because I can't ever stop reading Harry Potter. I think though I might actually watch the films again soon, because I can't really reread them again. I can't justify that to myself yet, so maybe I'll just watch the films instead. Next up is a book that I read from my childhood again, but this time I was quite disappointed. And it's strange because I don't really remember much about it from when I was a kid, other than that I really liked it, and then I didn't really like it that much when I read it now, so it's a bit of a shame. But this is Skellig by David Almond. Almond? Oh, I never know how to say that. Basically this follows a young boy who, his sister is and she's like a newborn baby, and she's very ill in hospital. And his family have just moved into a new house, and in the garage of that house he finds a man slash beast slash angel slash God knows what it's meant to be. But basically he finds him in the garage, and he starts like sneaking food to him and stuff. And then I think it's supposed to be about the angel saving the child, like the baby. I don't really know, like, to be honest with you, even though I've read it, I don't really understand it. I did read this in one sitting, but to be honest, it's just not great. Like, there wasn't really a story to it, and I still don't really understand what happened. Like, I don't get it. I think that for me, it's just not great, and I did this at school, and I loved it, and I don't really know why I loved it, but I don't love it anymore, so I gave this a 2-star. Then I'm very excited that I finally read this book. Like, this has taken me ages to read this, but I read Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This is the first Leigh Bardugo book that I have ever read, and I adored it. I've heard loads of people talk about how good Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom are as a duology, and I was kind of like, I don't know that I'm going to love it as much as everybody thinks. Like, everybody says that they love it. I feel like I'm not quite a fantasy person. I literally adored this. Like, I could not get enough. I was wanting to read it. I remember I went to work, I had about 50 pages left at the end of this book, and I had to go to work because I had to finish in the morning. And I literally at lunchtime like ran home pretty much and sat and read because I was just so intrigued by it. And I really wanted to know what happened. This basically follows 6 outcasts, criminals, bad people, I guess, who try to do an impossible heist. They have to try and get somebody out of the ice court and basically, yeah, not be caught, I suppose. This was great. I don't enjoy, the only thing I didn't enjoy about this was that the ending, it leaves it open for another book, which I don't like it when books do that. Like, I think I know this was going to be a duology, like I already knew that because obviously the second one's already out. But I hate it when they leave, like, I understand there's a cliffhanger, that's different, but for me, for them to just be like, give you like a tiny bit and then just be like, okay, now I'm not going to tell you anything else, it's like, now I have to read the next one. And I don't like to read next books and series like straight after. I like to leave it a little while, just because I don't like to read the same like series all at once because I get a bit bored of it. So I'm not planning on reading this too soon, but I do want to know what happens. This was my only 5-star new book of the month. I did give Harry Potter a 5-star obviously, but I'd already read that before, so yeah, but I'm enjoying Leigh Bardugo's writing a lot, so I'm hoping to read more by her very soon. More on that to come in just a moment. And the last book that I have actually completed this month was Little Black Lies by Sharon Bolton, and I actually listened to this on audiobook. I gave this book a 4-star. I really enjoyed it. This follows 3 characters. One is Katrin, who 3 years before this book is set, her 2 young boys have an accident. Basically they are in a car that goes off the edge of a cliff, and unfortunately her best friend Rachel, another one of the characters, is the one whose car it is and who left them in the car. And it's also, there is also a man named Callum who is a Scottish man who came to the Falklands where this is set, and he is basically Katrin's boyfriend. So this follows the 3 characters. It starts off in the perspective of Katrin, and then it goes on to Callum and Rachel throughout, and basically this is about, there are young boys going missing on the island and off the Falklands, and it's about what happened, who did it. I mean, I can't really say much else without it being a spoiler. I really enjoyed this. I love a thriller anyway. This was really dark and it was like really creepy as well. It actually gave me nightmares at one point because I was just like, there's just something about it. It's so well written that it really takes you in. So yeah, I think this book, because I listened to it on audiobook as well, it was kind of creepy and strange and really atmospheric. The only thing I will say is the woman that did the voice of Rachel in this, she was so slow when she talked, like I just wanted to speed her up. But that's the only downside for it. That's why I gave it 4 stars and not 5. But this book is incredible and I absolutely adored it. And then we'll talk about the book now that I am currently reading, that I think I'm probably going to finish before the end of May, and that is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. This is a World Book Night 2016 copy. That's why it looks like this, which is strange than any other book, any other of this cover. But basically this is what I was on about when I said I was going to talk more about Leigh Bardugo, because this is book 1 in the Grisha series, and I think this is a trilogy, and this is set in the same world as Six of Crows is, and because I love Six of Crows so much I thought I should probably pick up the Grisha trilogy. I know a lot of people told me that I probably should have read the Grisha trilogy before I read Six of Crows, but I don't really care that much. I'm enjoying this so far. I can't really tell you what it's about too much because I'm literally about 20 pages in, but I definitely reckon I'm going to finish this because I'm filming this on the 26th of May, and so I think I've got about another 4 or 5 days to go, and I think I'm probably definitely going to finish this. So that is all the books that I read in May. I hope that you liked this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Let me know in the comments below which books you read in May and what's been your favourite, and I will see you all again next time. Bye!